What's up, good people? Welcome back to the Fresh Prince of Talk podcast. I am your host, Themba Prince. Thank you so much for tuning in once again. Don't forget to follow, share the podcast with your friends, and keep supporting the movement. You can also check out our previous episodes on Spotify and YouTube. Today's conversation is something very personal, something I think a lot of us are currently going through without even realizing it fully. And that is doing things with intention and developing habits that align with the person we want to become. A lot of us are slowly meeting newer versions of ourselves. And honestly, that can be scary. Because sometimes growth requires you to outgrow behaviors, mindset, environment, and even the people that once felt comfortable to you. There comes a point in life when you realize you can't just move randomly anymore. You can't just wake up and allow life to happen to you every single day. At some point, you have to become intentional. Intentional with your time, your energy, your habits, your friendships, your goals, your money, your health, your peace, everything. And the truth is, intentional living is not always loud. Sometimes it looks like discipline. Sometimes it looks like isolation. Sometimes it looks like saying no to things you used to enjoy. And sometimes it looks like disappearing while you can rebuild yourself properly. You know, a lot of people say they want to create content nowadays. They want to become influencers, podcasters, YouTubers, photographers, fashion creatives, entrepreneurs. But one thing I learned is that if you truly want to become something, you have to intentionally place yourself around that environment. A very prominent content creator, Grace Mondlane, once said something powerful about being intentional. She spoke about following people who create the kind of content that you want to create. Yes, you. And that makes so much sense because your minds get shaped by what you constantly consume. If every day you're consuming negativity, gossip, drama, and laziness, eventually your life starts reflecting that energy. But if you intentionally surround yourself with inspiration, discipline, creativity, and purpose, your mind slowly adapts to that lifestyle. That's why intentionality matters. Maybe you want to continue with your studies. Maybe you want to start a business. Maybe you want to learn a new skill, start gym, begin a spiritual journey, or even launch a small side hustle. You need to ask yourself, why am I doing this? Because when your why is strong enough, your habits begin to change automatically. You start waking up early. You start using your time differently. You start protecting your energy. You stop entertaining distractions. You know, and one thing that people don't talk about enough is how important it is to train yourself to do the hard things. You have to train yourself to stay up an extra 3 or 4 hours after work, pushing your modules, studying, editing content, working on your craft, or building a business. Nobody naturally enjoys discomfort, but growth requires it. Sometimes you'll be tired. Sometimes you'll feel discouraged. Sometimes nobody will support you in the beginning. But you still have to go the extra mile for yourself. Because at the end of the day, nobody's coming to save your dreams for you. You have to decide every single day that your future matters enough for you to sacrifice your comfort temporarily. And I'm emphasizing on that. And while doing all of these, find passion in what you do. Life is honestly short. One day, all the money, status, and materialistic things we worked hard for won't even matter. So while you're here, do things that genuinely fulfill your soul. If you love fashion, go all in. If you love podcasting, go all in. If you love music, photography, cooking, fitness, business, ministry, go all in. Even if you're not making money from it yet. Because sometimes purpose starts as passion before it becomes profit. And eventually, if you stay consistent enough, disciplined enough, and intentional enough, you'll find a way to monetize what you love naturally. Another important thing is your spiritual journey. Let's say you decide to become spiritually grounded. The moment you make that decision, your habits and your environment need to support that goal. If prayer is your goal, surround yourself with people who pray. If peace is your goal, surround yourself with peaceful people. If healing is your goal, stop surrounding yourself with chaos. Because your environment shapes you more than you realize. And sometimes we underestimate the power of association. And I actually did an episode before on the power of association, and it deeply connects with today's topic. Do check it out. You cannot continuously surround yourself with people doing opposite of what you claim you want and expect yourself not to be affected. It doesn't work like that. That's impossible. Actually, very impossible. Because human beings absorb energy, we absorb habits, language, and mindset from people around them. This is why being intentional with your friendships matters so much. Don't just have friends for the sake of having friends. I don't know if you get what I mean. Have people around you that inspire you to grow. People who challenge you. People who remind you of your goals when you become distracted. People who pray for you when you're weak. And people who understand your vision. Because if you see your life becoming something greater, you need people who can also see beyond survival mode. And sometimes intentional leaving will make people misunderstand you. Some people, they won't understand why you suddenly becoming distant, why you stopped going out every weekend, why you stopped oversharing, why you protect your energy now, and why you spend more time alone. But honestly, that's okay. There's power in being misunderstood. Like, not everyone needs access to your inner world. Not everyone needs to understand your transformation. Sometimes privacy is protection. Sometimes your silence is growth. And honestly, You become harder to control when people cannot fully predict or understand you. Mhm. Even financially, intentionality matters. Let's say you want to buy a car. Don't just buy something because people will be impressed. Ask yourself why you need it. Is it convenience? Is it business? Is it comfort? Long distance travels? Status? Affordability? Because once you understand the reason behind something, you make wiser decisions around it. You become intentional about the model, the budget, the monthly cost, and how long you plan to keep it for. Intentional people don't just spend emotionally, they spend with awareness. And another thing I've been thinking about lately is complaining. Yeah. Can always complaining make us tired? That's a question I used to so have. And I honestly think yes. Because constantly focusing on negativity, it drains your spirit, drains your mind and your body. That doesn't mean ignore problems, but there's a difference between acknowledging difficulty and living inside negativity every day. Sometimes we exhaust ourselves mentally before we even begin the work, which is why rest is also important. To truly operate at your best, you need a rested mind and body. You cannot be intentional while you are constantly burnt out. That won't happen. Rest is productive too, and I'm emphasizing on this one again. Sleep matters. Peace matters. Mental clarity matters. Taking care of yourself matters because the version of yourself you're trying to become requires energy, focus, discipline, and emotional stability. So, as we close today's episode, I will want to ask you to ask yourself a simple question. What kind of person am I becoming through my daily habits? Not through motivation, not through dreams, not through social media posts, but through your daily actions. Because habits eventually becomes lifestyle. Lifestyle becomes character, and character shapes destiny. Be intentional with your life. Be intentional with your circle. Be intentional with your time. Be intentional with your healing. Be intentional with your growth. And most importantly, be intentional with yourself. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of the Fresh Prince of Talk podcast. I am your host, Themba Prince, and don't forget to follow, share, and subscribe. You can also catch our full episodes with guests on YouTube at the Fresh Prince of Talk podcast. For now, see you next Sunday.